everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, and once again, it is Monday Morning Murph with Brian Murphy to break down the Vikings 21-13 victory over the Indianapolis Colts, one that we will remember forever as the game that they really destroyed the other team and yet only won by a couple points. Murph, was that your reaction? Because I thought that the Vikings in all facets outplayed the Indianapolis Colts, and I never felt for a single moment in that game that they were going to lose, and yet they made it a little bit tighter than it needed to be.
Yeah, I'm not going to remember this game forever. I'm not going to remember it beyond today. It was what it was. An ugly, pockmarked victory against an inferior opponent at home, and flush it, move on, because you got two more of these dogs coming up on the road. I wouldn't put too much stock into cosmetics at this point. In particular, the way Sam Darnold played last night, because it's one of those convenient games, but for the cancerous tumor in the body, he's in great shape. There were three awful moments, two awful throws, a strip sack where, he did get, kind of beat up on the head a little bit, but I put that more on Garrett Bradbury. We can get onto that in a little bit too, but he made big throws. He found all of his receivers, TJ Hawkinson being back in the lineup, Jordan Addison. Hey, I guess everybody was paying attention. You got your targets. They were moving the ball, gaining first downs on a 2-1 margin. They made Joe Flacco look 39 going on 79. I think it was a great bounce back game for the defense. Look, no one's going to remember this game for anything other than the fact that they won a home game they should have won. And that's all you need. I mean, there's plenty of red flags out there, but they're not any real different red flags than we talk about Darnold from day one, which is you really don't know what you're going to get with this guy. He's still remaking his I think he's still defining himself as a quarterback in this league, and we're not going to know until at the end of the season or even a couple more years exactly who he's going to be. So just accept what you got, because, hey, lest anyone forget, a year ago this week, it was the Josh Dobbs experiment, and then the carousel began, and it was a week-to-week white-knuckle ride where you had no idea what you were going to get from the quarterback position. We have a pretty good idea what we're going to get from Sam Darnold going forward, and I think we have a pretty good idea what this team is and how they can be successful. So, just take your ugly victories as they come.
Well, a lot of it was forgettable outside of maybe a couple of catches, one of them by Jordan Addison that was fantastic, and some really good throws by Sam Darnold, who has the ability to, on a weekly basis, make you go, no, Sam Darnold, and then also, whoa, Sam Darnold. So entertainment value is never lacking when it comes to him. But I think that there were a lot of really important developments, though, Murph. Not just that they won to go to 6-2 and continue to make this argument that they are one of the better teams in the NFC. I think if they had lost 3 games in a row, it would have been way harder to keep making that statement. Oh yeah, we're right up there with the other best teams in the NFC. Taking care of business here keeps that alive, but it also means that they can go into the trade deadline and potentially make a move because they are in the driver's seat. I think that that's the biggest big picture thing, is that if they had lost, I would have said, all right, don't even make any phone calls. Put the phone down. Let's just play this thing out and see how it ends up working. But now we've talked about for several weeks in a row, should they, shouldn't they? It was very much for me, gas pedal down at 5-0 and then maybe tapping the brakes after Christian Darrisaw. Where do you stand now on that?
Well, they already did make their move. I mean, the front office said, "Look, we're gonna go out and get a left tackle." I mean, Cam Robinson did not have the smoothest career in Jacksonville, but they isolated on him in the broadcast last night, and he, for a guy that just showed up on Tuesday, I mean, he looked like he knew exactly what he was doing. The interior line got punished pretty good by the Colts. That led to that Darnold fumble and strip sack and rumble and score. I think that they've recognized that this is an opportunity season, and the deadline's tomorrow. There's always needs to fill. again, we're 8 games in, so it's not as easy as the other sports where you just plug and play with somebody, or like in baseball where you acquire a closer or a pitcher. There's more complications to it, so there'll be some deliberation. I don't think they're going to overpay. I guess the big question mark maybe today is what's going to be the status of Will Reichard, your kicker, who, by the way, was perfect until he suddenly wasn't, missing a 53-yard field goal and a 30-yarder, and now has a quad problem that if it's not going to be problematic right now, it could be down the road again. He said it had been bothering him. That's something that you need to pay attention to. I don't think they need to go on the trade market necessarily to find a kicker, but that was a disturbing development coming out of last night that'll probably get more play in the next day or two. Yeah, I think the Vikings know who they are. I think it's pretty obvious that they are a defensive, suffocating, threatening team with a quarterback that you can rely on to make some great passes because he's got an outstanding receiving core and a diverse receiving core. They've got a running game that can balance out maybe mistakes that Darnold makes to control the clock. I mean, the Vikings had the ball and were pretty much in command. As you said, I never felt, even trailing 7-0, I never felt like that this game was slipping out of their fingers. They were putting up too many yards, getting too many first downs, and the Colts weren't, beyond a couple players on the interior line that were wreaking havoc, weren't really putting up much resistance. So this is the formula for them. And, it was nice to see that they didn't commit as many penalties, particularly pre-snap penalties. So hat tip to Kevin O'Connell and the rest of the unit for really bearing down and kind of getting that together. I'm not sure they even had to burn a timeout to save a delay a game. They might have had something happen in the first half where they used a timeout, but it never felt like there was chaos on the sidelines. It was a much more controlled victory. And again, an average, mediocre opponent that made huge news by benching their rookie or second-year quarterback. They were a wounded team coming in here. Now you've got Jacksonville, which is arguably one of the worst teams, certainly one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and Tennessee. Just two really awful teams on the road, worse than Indianapolis. Again, you're in a position to just keep stacking up victories. You don't have to play perfect games against these teams. And it looks like clearly the Lions are the class of the NFC and the NFC North. Green Bay is going to have problems with managing Jordan Love's health going forward. And I don't know. I don't think the Chicago Bears are really affording themselves. They seem to be fading pretty quickly. So you can kind of see where the division race is shaping up, where the conference race is shaping up. And I really truly believe it's not a team searching for an identity at all. I think we know exactly who the Vikings are, and they should feel pretty good about themselves after 8 games.
Well, this was really important to me because we needed to see how they fixed the problems that ailed them against Detroit and against the Los Angeles Rams. And as you saw yesterday, again, the Rams are a better team than their record when the Vikings played them, and better than some of the stats than when they were heading into the game against the Vikings. But still, we had seen a blueprint laid out on both sides of the ball for being able to slow down the Vikings. Some of it was slowing themselves down, as you mentioned, with all those penalties that they had committed, and they got that largely cleaned up against Indianapolis. But I also thought that they took more of a tempo type of approach. We're going to get to the line of scrimmage a lot faster. That was what I noticed, is that I wasn't looking at the play clock going, okay, 3, 2, you're going to have to snap the ball. That didn't happen a whole lot last night. I thought that they simplified it to where maybe only one guy was going in motion, that they weren't moving around a bunch of parts and struggling to get everyone in the right spots before the snap. And Justin Jefferson had said leading into the week that they had talked about in their meetings with O'Connell, let's just let our guys beat their guys and simplify it a little bit. And I thought that they really did that. And you look at some of the plays, they had a 19-yard throw to TJ Hawkinson. Oh, look, that guy's pretty important to get involved. That was something that's a positive development for them. The plays to Justin Jefferson, it was like 20, 20, 40. I mean, he was getting explosive plays left and right. But they were staying on the field for a lot longer. They were having these long extended drives. It wasn't either a huge touchdown drive or a punt. They were on the field for so long in that game, and that's not a joke of a defense in Indianapolis. And I thought that O'Connell being able to assess some of his own shortcomings with the offense and then apply them right away coming out of that bad game against the Rams, I think that said something good about where they can take this offense, that they are able to make some adjustments to be able to stay on the field more often and not put so much pressure on their defense. Hang on. Let me silence my phone real quick so I can tell you that Us Days at US Cellular is back again. Exclusive offers just for customers, just to say thanks. Right now, you'll get $1,200 off any phone plus $400 off any tablet. Amazing, right? But my family is so excited about their new devices, they keep texting me during the show. They're all about Us Days deals like $1,200 off any phone, $400 off any tablet. Terms apply. Visit uscellular.com for details.
Well, and it was talked about too, the impact that TJ Hawkinson would have. I mean, there was a buildup. It wasn't as if he came out of nowhere. There was this sense of when you get Hawkinson back in the lineup, that's going to diversify, spread out the ball a little more, give defenses more to think about if they're going to double team Justin Jefferson. And I guess it's no coincidence that Addison had I wouldn't say a breakout game, but he had one of his. I mean, that catch in the end zone is going to be on the highlight reel for a long time. I mean, that was as spectacular a grab. I mean, Justin Jefferson, if we should say, and the timing of it was huge because I think it was on third down as well. So it was just an opportunity to showcase again where he's at and what kind of weapons the Vikings have on. They can hit Aaron Jones out of the backfield. There's so much more that they can do, and this was Justin Jefferson's first kind of spot on the national stage. The NBC broadcast spent plenty of time pumping his tires for obvious reasons, and he came through and showed why he is arguably the best receiver in the NFL, because he can make any catch, he can bail out his quarterback, he can beat any cornerback, and that's what he thrives on. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be the guy with the gold jacket in 10 or 15 years. I'm sure he wants a couple of rings to go with it as well. So it just looks like this is a team that knows exactly what it is, knows its limitations, but knows what it can be, fully formed now here offensively. And that's quite impressive because as we talk about all of those weapons and they still only got 21 points out of it, but they move the ball with ease at times. And I think, as you said, there was so much of a tax on the defense through these first 7 games that you wondered how long that was going to be able to hold up over the course of 17. And the time of possession and just sort of the way the game went, the tempo you mentioned on offense really kept drives alive, extended drives, and the defense was really able to, I think O'Connell said afterwards, get its pop back. And that's what it felt like. It didn't feel like they were on their heels or as reactionary. It felt like a lot of the chaos that Brian Flores has been dialing up really came back. It confused Joe Flacco, who's not the most mobile anyway. They were in his face. They forced him to make some difficult throws that he couldn't complete. And you had some big veteran plays again. I think Gilmore and Harrison Smith had some big plays. These are the guys that you need to protect load management, as it were, to use an NBA term, down the road, because you want them there week 16, week 17, and into the playoffs to be as fresh as they can. So this is an opportunity here. They're going to be down in the heat in Jacksonville next week. It's a terrible defense. That would be the game to do a 35 to 40 minute ball control kind of game and really preserve your defense. Same at Tennessee. And then now you're feeling like, you're a little bit more balanced. It's not all about the defense. You're not forcing them to come up with the key play in high pressure, high leverage situations, which expends so much energy. So I thought it was a good bounce back in the sense that it was complimentary ball last night.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. I want to talk about the defense, but let's stick with Sam Darnold for a minute. I don't think that there's going to ever be a way, Murph, to just wave a magic wand over Sam Darnold and say, and boop, you no longer have turnover worthy plays. And when the Vikings were 5-0, and occasionally it would come up that he had too many turnover worthy plays, there was a lot of pushback. Well, come on, they're 5-0 and they can overcome those. And they did overcome them against the Indianapolis Colts. But that's going to be, I think, the roller coaster that we end up riding with Sam Darnold, is that every one of those turnovers, he comes out after the game and naturally says, well, that's a mistake on my part. I can't make that throw. I can't do that. And then he does kind of the same thing the next week where he takes the sack, and yes, it was Garrett Bradbury's fault 100%, but yeah, there's still the sack where he takes and loses 13 yards, where he tries to run backwards and escape out of the pocket, which he's taken almost every single week. There's the rolling throw to the left where it was the same play that happened against the Packers and they dropped it. This time they caught it. And there had been a few of those dropped interceptions and things like that have just been caught. But as long as the high end follows and as long as the ball control follows, because those not only kill drives, they also will make for short drives if you turn it over quickly. And then once again, we're talking about not running that many plays. But when you're looking at what they did last night and were able to control the ball for as long as they were, and he was as accurate as he was. I mean, I thought he was incredibly accurate for all of the rest of the game. Outside of those two throws, I would give him an A+ for the way he performed outside of those turnovers. This is just the Sam Darnold experience, and strap yourself in. That's the way I'm looking at it after last night. I don't think that there's anything you can coach out of that. It's just going to happen. But if the other side is good enough, they can still win games even if they make some mistakes.
Oh, I don't think it's out of line to say they would not have won that game last night if it was New York, Detroit, or Los Angeles. I think that's obvious because they would have made them pay, and they would not have been able to get off the field the way they were against Indianapolis because Flacco just wasn't there dealing like he might have been last year in Cleveland. Yeah, I agree. This is Sam Darnold, so accept it, and it's not a bad thing to accept. I think. Because he doesn't go into a shell and fall apart. I mean, he's got enough, mental battle scars here throughout his career where he's still capable of making that, as you mentioned, the big chunk throws to Jefferson, 20 plus, 30 plus yards each time, tight windows down the sidelines, converting third downs, big throws. And yes, he does tend, if the pocket collapses, to turn around and run the wrong way and give up another 5 yards on the sack. But he also has, some sneakiness to him where he's able to escape some pressure and go for 10 or 11 yards, slide, get down, and live to fight another day, whether it's picking up a first down or just getting out of disaster. That almost kind of counteracts a little bit of him, running backwards into a sure sack. So you have to take this. You have to take what you're going to get from Darnold, which is going to be a poorly thrown or a bad decision, poorly thrown ball into tight coverage when another receiver, at least on the broadcast replay, you can see is wide open. Why isn't he recognizing that? Why is he trying to force it here? And against good teams, that's not going to fly. In the playoffs, that's going to be devastating. Right now, against Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Tennessee, even Chicago coming into town, I'm not going to fret too much about that because he's been able to show that on the next series, the next set of plays, the next stretch of the game, he's making big throws and big plays. So I'm content to take the good and the bad of Sam Darnold as the complete package of Sam Darnold. And again, where are we? November 4th here. If we were having this conversation on September 4th before week 1, saying, there's going to be some good and some bad, but he's going to make some huge throws and his touchdown to interception ratio is going to be not as bad as you think it would be. I mean, everybody would take that. Everybody would take 6-2. So it's fine to be skeptical and scrutinize, but don't get carried away in the waiting for the other shoe to drop mentality all the time. I know fans are conditioned for that, but there's just enough here to say, look, there's enough the weaponry on the offense and there's enough passion and performance on the defense that each side can pick each other up at any given time. And this is a team that's built to have success. I don't know how much success, but they are built to have success. And I don't look at that 6-2 record as flawed or jinxed or not emblematic of who they are. I think they're in a good position right now because of that.
Yeah, I don't think that it's a bogus 6-2 record at all. I mean, if you look at the point differential, that's what I always kind of focus on is what the metrics say. The metrics still after 5-2 said that they were a very good and competitive team. And that was why last week I kind of wanted to beg the fan base, don't do the thing where you all jump ship because you lost 2 games in a row to 2 great quarterbacks and play callers. There's a lot ahead of you left in the season. And I remember saying, guys, there's like 10 games left. Like you can't give up on a team that's winning like this and has this much talent. And they at least proved that correct on Sunday Night Football to go to 6-2. And now I have a chance to, you look forward to the next even 3 games. Things are starting to come apart a little bit in Chicago. Can you win all of these games? Or is there going to be one letdown, but you still, because you get this one against Indianapolis, are very much in the driver's seat? Just on Sam Darnold, I've talked about on the show before how I really like going back and watching old games from Jeff George. And it's kind of reminding me of that at times where the wow throws are unbelievable and the turnovers are, oh my gosh, how did you just make that throw into that spot? The arm talent is unbelievable at times with the way that he could throw it down the field. I mean, he said something like, yeah, I guess I could have put a little more on that one throw to Jefferson that traveled 40 yards down the field effortlessly out of that arm of Sam Darnold. I think that he's been an incredibly entertaining quarterback to watch on a weekly basis. And his scramble was also great. And I don't want to take that part of his game away. So if you can't take away some of the risk taking, you're also not going to make him Drew Brees when it comes to reading every single play correctly and spotting every single guy that's open, as we all can brilliantly do from the press box or on the broadcast. Thank you to all the people who pointed out, including Jordan Addison's dad, that he was open on that play. That's going to happen, folks. That's just going to happen sometimes when you have Sam Darnold as your quarterback, but the high end of it has been so good that they've been able to overcome some of those miscues. I do think on that particular play. So O'Connell said last night that it's his winning edge to trust Sam Darnold. And I mostly agree. I just like to have a home run hitter who strikes out, that mostly gets you ahead. I do think when you take a 7-point lead over a team that cannot move the ball against you, cannot score, and is just bumbling as a franchise over there, saying to Sam Darnold, hey, let's from our own zone throw a bomb, is not my preference for Kevin O'Connell. I guess he's just going to do that, and he's just going to always try to dagger the other team. I also think the other team knows at this point that Kevin O'Connell is always going to do that. That was my only real criticism in an A-plus game plan from O'Connell that got the ball to all the different weapons, moved it brilliantly down the field, controlled the ball. Great, great, great game plan from O'Connell. But there are just a couple times through this entire thing where I've said, okay, I agree that trusting Sam Darnold is your winning edge. Can you trust him 3% less on that play and duck it down to TJ Hawkinson instead of trying to throw a bomb that could be intercepted?
It still feels like O'Connell's still a bit in salesman mode, trying to sell himself, trying to sell the locker room, maybe even Darnold, certainly the fan base, that, he's all in on Sam and he trusts Sam. I think Sam gets that. I think the locker room gets that too. You mentioned the Jeff George comparison. I wasn't here when he was here for his one season, but in talking to people that covered that team, he was the ultimate mercenary. Have arm, have gun, will travel. I mean, he could throw a ball across time zones, but he never was really, I don't think he was embraced as a leader like a quarterback should. And I think there was always a lot of kind of side eyes in the locker room about what his true motivations were. I don't get that sense with Darnold. I think the locker room, if anything, closed ranks around him very soon. But I don't get the sense that even if Darnold had a 3-interception, 110-yard, 38% game that cost the Vikings, that he would be in any risk of losing his receiving core, losing Justin Jefferson, losing the locker room. I think they see him as a big arm gamer, who knows the game, studies the game, says all the right things. He's banal. He isn't taking credit. He's not leaning into this rejuvenation as if it was owed to him. He's been very humble along the way. He's been able to recover and show some resilience from his mistakes. He's gotten hit a few times and limped around. He's got the toughness card going for him too. So he is, in a sense, going to make mistakes because of that big arm. The fact that O'Connell doesn't worry about unleashing it, and Darnold isn't going to back down from gunning it downfield, then you're going to see these moments where you're just like, a check down might have worked here. But then how many times were we yelling at Kirk Cousins for checking down all the time, including, check down 3rd and 5, throw a 3-yard pass in a playoff game. So it just feels like Darnold has kind of established himself as a guy that's still on the move, still trying to make I don't want to say a name for himself, but really, really define his career. And he's enjoying it along the way. And I think the Vikings are a really good situation for him right now. So I don't think O'Connell needs to really sell us anymore on the fact that he believes in Sam Darnold. I think we all get that. I think the locker room gets that. And I don't know, do you even want to talk about the trickeries again last night that just seemed to, boy, that's an awful lot of guardrail to take out for 9 yards, but hey, it looks exciting, right?
I did congratulate Kevin O'Connell on the post-game show for his first and hopefully only trick play that worked. Now I fear that he'll get cocky and confident that his trick plays actually are great and he's going to run them each week. If you're going to do it against the Colts. That's maybe these next 3 weeks. It's trick play.
Empty the bag, right? Empty the trick bag.
So you're not trying to throw a halfback pass against a good team in a big game or something like that. Although Justin Jefferson, I've seen him in practice, has an absolute cannon. He has an incredible arm. So if there is one guy to do that with, I guess it's him. But just to circle back to the Darnold comparison, I think it just can't be said enough how impressive the mentality of Sam Darnold is. And this is a thing that I did not know about him. But the game against the Jets was pretty rough. And he got beat up in that game and he wasn't seeing anything and they kind of got away with it. And it was over in London, but they come back and he goes toe to toe with Goff and Stafford in those games, played well enough to win. They're one stop away on both of those games on defense from giving him a chance to win. And then national stage again, where your team is sliding down the wall a little bit. And he did more than enough in this game. He made tons of great throws. I mean, the throw to Addison can't be understated either, because on TV, I don't think it captures how much he's running backward away from the pressure, which was immediate. And he's going back. All his momentum is going the other way. And he has to use his entire arm to get it to Addison in the back of the end zone. It's a throw that most quarterbacks, I think, just try to throw it out of bounds when they're getting chased on that. And Darnold makes the play. But he has stayed on track even during games when there has been mistakes, and he's shaken it off and he's gotten right back in there and he's led a scoring drive right after those interceptions. He kind of goes, my bad, here I go again. And I really respect that about him. And also, I think the other guys, as you mentioned, have rallied around Sam Darnold really since JJ McCarthy got hurt and said, this is our guy. We are not concerned about what's going to happen in the future. And O'Connell has said the same thing. I don't need him to lean into him in every single moment all the time. I do. And lastly, I'll give O'Connell credit for this, that they started running the ball after that completion got him going at the end, and they handed off and they handed off. And I was up in the press box saying, yes, the Colts have been on the field all night long, pound their faces in, and they did. And then they get the ball to Josh Oliver, who's kind of one of the more underrated players in the game.
And it should be mentioned that Cam Akers makes his appearance, and there's your change of pace back, and there's your option to really lean on a defense too, when you can run the ball with Jones and Akers.
That's correct. And now we don't have to argue over whether Ty Chandler should be out there more anymore. It's clear that that's not going to happen. But now that they're healthy and Akers is here and Hockenson is here, this is the best group of weapons in the league. You agree with that?
Yeah, you're testing my depth knowledge. They certainly passed the eye test. Hard to argue against the Lions, and it looks like the Chiefs are still on the prowl at the trade deadline too. But yes, as far as 1 through 5 on your playmaking options, they're in pretty good shape because they have the weaponry and the talent, but they also have the experience. I mean, Akers has been around a while. Jones has been around a while. Jefferson now is a veteran. Hawkinson, he's been hurt a lot, but he was a Pro Bowler in Detroit too. He's got a lot of experience. Addison is still emerging. It just feels like there's a wide variety of options that are battle tested, experienced, and I don't know this. When you throw in, this is the first game that everybody's been available with Sam Darnold. So if this is the blueprint going forward, you got to feel pretty good about that offensively. They're going to probably make some hay next week. Again, down in Jacksonville, which has a terrible defense. Tennessee's flailing around. These are, if you're able to really refine and sort of open up and spread out the playbook and see what your options are, these are almost laboratory type games. I mean, that sounds very cocky to say because you could easily walk down there and get blasted. But these are kind of we joke about it with the trick plays, but it's really an opportunity to just open it wide and see what you really can do because mistakes might not be as magnified in these games. Your defense is going to play pretty well. Experiment here, see what you can do with the full menu and see what that can do going into late November, December games. We're going to be dealing maybe with some weather. You're going to be dealing with some more wear down injuries. You'll know what all your options are going to be.
Okay, big picture after this game, which is weird to talk about with the score because it looks like you barely squeaked by the Colts and yet make those 2 field goals. Don't throw an interception in the red zone. This is a complete blowout. And maybe get a call from the referees from the clubbing that happened to Sam Darnold to fumble that ball.
That's 2 missed calls on him to the head the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Including the face mask in LA.
And there was the one earlier this year against, I believe, Houston, where he was sliding and he got hit in the noggin. The no call there either. I just wonder if a defensive tackle brings out a flamethrower and shoots Sam Darnold with it, if there will be a flag. I guess we're going to find out in the future. But a big picture on this one, Murph. Look across the NFC. There is no debate who's number 1, but are the Vikings number 2 behind the Detroit Lions?
I'm not quite there yet. I think the record says that they are, but I'll say yes, they are because I'm still a little skeptical on Philadelphia, but I still believe Philadelphia and San Francisco are going to be there at the end just because of their track records. I'm a little unsure of the Atlanta Falcons right now, who seem to be humming pretty well behind our old friend number 8, who'll be here in about a month. The West seems to be catching fire. The Rams may be on one of those runs now where you could see, with Stafford playing as well as he is and them getting healthy, you could see them ripping off a bunch of victories in a row. So big picture today, yeah, I'll go Vikings at 6-2. And they're going to keep stacking wins. I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't be 8-2 coming at home against Chicago. And I'm going to be more willing to lean into them as the number 2 team, but I still feel like Philly and San Francisco and maybe a hard-charging Rams squad are going to be there in December as bona fide contenders that have overcome early hiccups. So it's incumbent upon the Vikings to take advantage of their soft schedule to keep pace if these veteran proven teams do catch fire. So how's that for a qualified answer?
We're also not used to saying the Washington Commanders are a legitimate
Again, see, that's the thing. You forget about that. You forget about Atlanta. You forget about Washington. And you're right. The Commanders, who are they really? Well, they look pretty damn good.
They do. And Jaden Daniels does not look like a rookie. So I might put the Vikings and the Commanders even. behind the Lions for a tie, and then one notch down teams like the Falcons. I would still put the Rams one notch down from the Vikings, and I would have to put the Packers that way too. They didn't play Detroit as strong as the Vikings did, and of course the head-to-head, the Vikings got the win there, and they're dealing with whatever is happening with Jordan Love and being banged up and that kind of thing. So I would have to say that they're right there, and we will find out if they make some big moves on Tuesday. Of course, we'll have all the coverage there. Monday morning, Murph, as always. And your column isn't up yet right now, but by the time I post this podcast, it will be. So purpleinsider.com, go check that out. Thanks so much, Murph. We'll do it again next week. Let's see. When am I flying back? Oh, I'm flying back Sunday night from Jacksonville. So we'll be good. Same schedule.
And this is my annual road trip stories for those that love those kinds of things. The St. Paul Dads Without Wives. We are going to Jacksonville this weekend. We have a beach house. We have a bus. It's going to be stealing one more weekend of summer, I guess.
Very good. Very good. I'm excited about the weather for sure for this trip. So thanks, Murph. And thanks everybody for watching / listening.